On there for you, bigger winner here, the organization, Terry or Jayden Daniels when it comes to this deal getting done?
Can we go letter D, all of the above? Right, because to me that's the answer, because where the Commanders want to go, Brandon, they weren't going to go without scary Terry McLaurin. You have a young superstar in Jayden Daniels at quarterback, and he built that camaraderie and that connection with scary Terry McLaurin. So why even mess that up? Why not bring in that veteran receiver that your young quarterback can continue to grow? So that's why I say it's multiple choice A, B, and C. No, it's D. All of the above. The Commanders win, Terry McLaurin wins, and Jayden Daniels win because of this deal.
Getting this deal done, we know how they looked last year in their division. Second, of course, runner-up in the NFC Championship. Now that the pen has been put to paper, where do you see them?
I put it out there earlier. I got them going to the Super Bowl this year. And I think, again, they weren't going to do that without scary Terry McLaurin. You had a guy like Deebo Samuel. You had Laramie Tunsil to left tackle. Josh Cornerly at right tackle. So we saw this team last year. Again, they picked number 2 overall because they weren't good, Brandon. But led by Jayden Daniels, yes, they are going to the Super Bowl. Like, the Washington Commanders, I feel like, are going to the Super Bowl with the addition of this signing to scary Terry McLaurin, because I love what they did. Last year, again, a lot of people didn't expect them to go to the NFC Championship game, but because of the superstar ability by Jayden Daniels and this offense, they were able to go there. Now they fixed some of those issues on defense. They get Terry McLaurin under contract. I think the sky's the limit for this team. I think it's Super Bowl or bust for the Commanders.
So Commanders over the defending champs and the Eagles, and then also the NFC. That's where you have.
Yeah, I have them taking it all the way to the Super Bowl on the NFC side.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the Commanders this year, man. I honestly think it's going to be a DMV Super Bowl. The Ravens and the Commanders.
I'll never live this one down. Of course, you add Deebo Samuel on the opposite side. What does that look like with Terry, obviously the number 1 and Deebo number 2?
Yeah, you love that they have different skill sets. And we kind of saw a little bit of that from Deebo Samuel throughout preseason game, because we saw him get a speed sweep on the outside. He's a guy that can run the football out of the backfield. He's a guy that's going to be a tone setter, where Terry McLaurin is going to be that guy that destroys the middle of the field. And then we saw it last year, Brandon, on some of those screen plays. He has the speed to take it the distance. He's a tough competitor. So these guys are both tough competitors, but they have different skill sets. So it'll be interesting to see how Cliff Kingsbury uses those skill sets. Will Deebo line up in the backfield sometimes to scary Terry on the outside? Will he give some of those speed sweeps to Deebo Samuel? Will those screen plays, instead of going to scary Terry McLaurin, will they go to Deebo Samuel? I can't wait to see how they use this offense, because it's going to be an explosive offense.
Again, I want to remind people, 3 years, $96 million. Terry McLaurin agreed to that deal with the Commanders. And, of course, Force reporting that our Jonathan Jones, I want to bring you in. What have you heard about this contract? This is something we've been waiting to hear this whole summer. Finally, 2 weeks. As LeJay said before we get to week 1, what have you heard about this?
McLaurin is back with the Washington Commanders. That is the way, really, this has been trending for some time. When you consider what he means to that organization, when you consider what he does in that offense, right? He is a 1,000-yard receiver every single year, similar to Mike Evans, right? His relationship with Jayden Daniels. We can go on and on. His character on and off the football field. He was always remaining with the Commanders, and 31 other teams understood that, right? There was never any real trade talk. While other teams surely were interested in his services, they didn't believe that he was ever going to come available to them. And so now you get this deal done. It's a 3-year extension that is going to carry him through the 2028 season with the Washington Commanders. I know there are some initial reports out there about this money. I would just caution slightly about the $96 million, that it averages $32 million per year. I think there's going to be some inflated numbers involved there. I won't at all be surprised to see when the real numbers come in, if this is a little bit closer to 30, be it just a shade under that. We'll see again when those numbers ultimately come in. But the point being, everyone feels good about this deal for Terry McLaurin. He has gone about things the right way with this organization over the last several years. They want to build off of last season and continue that. And so now he is back in the fold with the Washington Commanders.
And JJ, as players, it's always about the guarantee. So what have you been hearing about how much is guaranteed? How many years throughout the deal is guaranteed? And what is he getting up front?
Yeah, again, those are the numbers that we're hoping to get at some point. Initially, right, you want to get the biggest number out there, so I think that's what's happening right now. We talk about how he is sign through the 2028 season. At that point, he'll be in his mid-30s, and so usually you never see the end of that contract. So we'll ultimately see what those numbers wind up being, but surely he wins in terms of getting the headline with the average annual value, right? He can be in that graphic tied with an A.J. Brown at 6th, and so we'll see what that number winds up being. Again, it's difficult when you get a 30-year-old wide receiver, right, no matter what he means to the team, because there's not a great comparison for it, right? Outside of a Mike Evans, you look at a Cooper Kupp, you look at a Devontae Adams, there's just not a ton of comps out there. And so, again, Commanders, knowing that it had to be around 30, won't be at all surprised to learn that there's a little bit of fluff to bump him up there just to get the deal done, to go ahead and try to ultimately get back to that NFC Championship game, to build off of that and even go further.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to frown at $32 million, and Terry's a very happy man. And coming off a record 13 touchdowns last season, second most in the league that you hinted at. We talk about the time between week 1 and now to get ramped up with your QB. Of course, this isn't a 5-year relationship, just 1 year together. Right. How long is it going to take them to get in game shape?
So it's always interesting. I always say, as a veteran, after like year 3 or 4, you need about 2 solid weeks to rev up to get you ready for an NFL game. Now, the interesting thing is we saw CeeDee Lamb go through this a few years ago, and it took him a few weeks into the season where he really struggled before he became CeeDee Lamb again. So you're just hoping that Terry McLaurin can pick up right where he left off with Jayden Daniels. I think those 2 solid weeks will be good enough. Now, I think we won't see the true scary Terry McLaurin until about week 2 or 3, but it's good that he's getting 2 weeks in with Jayden Daniels, and they didn't get this deal done just like a week before the season. It's almost 2 weeks out. So 2 significant weeks where you're getting that camaraderie, getting that timing down with your quarterback should be sufficient enough for scary Terry McLaurin and Jayden Daniels.
So going into it, heading into week 1, there was 3 dominoes. We now have 1 now with Terry there in D.C. You still have Hendrickson in Cincinnati, J.J. You still have Micah Parsons in Dallas. We're getting closer, as I mentioned, to week 1. Any chance we see any of those dominoes fall, or what have you heard leading up to week 1 with those guys?
Yeah, because of different positions, right, I don't think that this one impacts any of the others, right? In fact, I think each one of these, Terry McLaurin and Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons, are their own individual contract negotiations, right? Even you say, all right, well, Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons are both pass rushers, and so one could impact the other. They do not, right? Micah Parsons is talking about being the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Trey Hendrickson is just trying to get into the top 3 or 4 of pass rushers in the NFL and then get some money that's guaranteed beyond 2025 with a team that historically, outside of Joe Burrow and the wide receivers, they don't do that. And so each one of these are their own sort of specific contract negotiations. And so ultimately we will see which way this winds up cutting for the Cincinnati Bengals, for the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones is always a bit of a wild card when it comes to contract negotiations, as we have seen the last several weeks.
If there's any indication, Jonathan